Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. Today I'm sharing the cards I made using Queen Company's Winter Wonderland kit. Now unfortunately the kit has already sold out, but it will be restocked early next year. This kit is so much fun, it's perfect for Christmas and also winter cards. I do have an unboxing video if you want a closer look at everything that's included, and I will add that link in the description box as well. So let's go ahead and jump right into my first set of cards. I'll be making 2 of every card, but I'm only going to show the process of assembling 1 of each of them. For this first card, I'm using a sketch from MFT. This is number 513. I'm using some white shimmer paper for the background, and then I'm adding this diagonal piece of this fun polka dot paper, and I wanted to mat it with some of the matte solids, but I didn't want to use a full piece, so I just cut those 2 thin strips, so you're only going to see that tiny bit at the edge. Then I just flipped over that panel and trimmed off the extra. And I used some of this stripe paper and cut this very thin strip, it's about 1/4 of an inch, just following the sketch fairly closely. Again, I'll just flip over that panel and trim away the extra. I'll put this white piece onto some black cardstock, and this is just some black cardstock from my craft room. Most of the solid papers you're going to see in this video are from Queen Company's 6x6 solid pack. The colors coordinate perfectly with the paper pad that's included in the kit. The solids are available as an add-on purchase. I love to pick them up to go along with the paper collection since you can use them for layers or some of those extra elements on your cards. I'm adding some black twine to the bottom portion of the card, and instead of having it wrap all the way around the back, since this twine is a little bit thicker, I did cut off 2 separate pieces, and then just to make sure it's not going to slip off later, I adhered the ends behind this panel using some Queen Company red line tape. Then I'll attach my card front onto a card base. I did put some liquid adhesive on the lower portion of the card where it's near the twine, just to make sure it's not going to pull away from the card base later. Then I'll cut 1 more piece of twine and tie a bow on the right hand side. And this twine is by Queen Company. I don't believe they sell it anymore, but I still have some on hand, so I'm trying to use it up. Now for the image, I'm going to assemble the round snow globe. There are 3 different sizes and shapes of snow globes included in the kit, and also a ton of different image dies. You can create a bunch of different fun scenes to put inside your snow globe. I used one of the outline dies to cut out that snow background and then attach the foam on top. All of Queen Company's foam is self-adhesive, so you just have to remove the backing. For the image on this card, I'm assembling the little house, and I also have a couple of trees. I put some yellow paper behind the opening for the windows, so it looks like the light is on. I have a teal door. I use some of the dark gray. This might be the black solid for the roof. Put the little wreath in there. And now I'll attach the trees. There's 2 different sizes of the small trees, and there's also a larger size. You could fill your snow globe with just one of the larger trees. Now before I adhere this piece onto the card, since that very top part of the snow globe is going off of the other layers, I am going to add some scrap cardstock. So no one's going to see that piece, but it makes it so there isn't going to be that noticeable dent when I would put liquid adhesive on the back and adhere it onto the card. I'm tilting the card up slightly, just trying to make sure I get that snow globe adhered straight, because once it's down, it's not coming off. Now while I let that glue dry for a moment, I'm going to attach a couple of small banners in the upper left-hand corner. And these banners are from Queen Company's foundation die set number 7, I believe. They currently have 10 foundation die sets plus a new holiday foundation die set. And I love all of the sets. So now I can go ahead and add some shaker toppings. I'm using 2 of the toppings that are included in the kit. Wanted them to look more like snow. So I have those clear glitter discs, not sure what those are called, and then some of the large pearls. Removed the other side of the backing on the foam, seal everything in place with the pre-cut acetate. And then I have the frame cut out already, use some of the light gray solids. Using some Queen Company sheer glue, putting it along the foam frame, and then I can attach this die cut piece in place. I've also already stamped out the sentiment. The sentiment is, "May the magic of Christmas fill your home this year." I just adhere that in place using some liquid adhesive. And now to finish off the card, I'm going to add an assortment of bling. And I'll also add some of the snowflakes. This is from Queen Company's Holiday Sprinkle Set number 1. And I just wanted the snowflakes. Although I could have grabbed the bag of snowflake toppings that are included in the kit, but this one was a little more visible on my desk, so that's what I grabbed. I placed the clear iridescent goosebumps down first, and then I laid out the snowflakes, and then to adhere those, I'm going to use some more of Queen Company's sheer glue. And there is my finished card. For the second card, I used the same layout, the same papers, but I made a non-shaker instead. So it's really fun that you can use the dies and create shakers or non-shakers. Sometimes I really like the look of the shaker card, and other times I prefer to have that non-shaker since it is easier to mail. Now moving on to the next set of cards. This is a card sketch from MFT. It's number 494. I'm using some more of the white shimmer paper for the background. Then I'm putting a strip of this red pattern paper. It looks like it has garland going across the background. I also cut some thin strips. One is that snowflake pattern paper and the other is some of the gray solids. And I didn't measure these strips, I just cut them out just to add a little extra color and detail. I'm just going to glue those onto the card. I do have them hanging off the end, and I'll just trim that off here in a moment. I'll flip over this panel and then trim away that overhang part. Try to wipe off some of this extra glue that I have everywhere. And then I'll attach this panel onto some silver mirror cardstock. And this is just some cheap silver cardstock that I've had on hand for years. It's fairly thin. Many times when I use that specialty cardstock, I'll cut out the center so I can save some of it. But I'm trying to use up this paper. It's not my favorite. It has that pretty shine, but like I said, it is fairly thin. And I decided I'd do a double matted layer. So first onto the silver and then onto some black cardstock. That black really makes it pop. For the snow globe on this card, I'm using the narrow, tall globe. Since there's the 3 different sizes, one is round, then there's the tall one, and then one is a little shorter and wider. I'm going to use the nativity image on the inside. I have the star background. And then I decided to cut out the image using some of that shimmer paper. And then for the star above baby Jesus, I used some silver glitter cardstock. Gave it just that little extra sparkle. And then for the shaker toppings, I'm going to use some of the black glitter. And then I was thinking of using some of the silver. I changed my mind. Instead, I'm going to add some more of those white pearls. Usually when I fill my shakers, I put a lot more toppings, but since there's the image in the background, I don't want to cover up very much. So just to make sure everything isn't going to fly around, I did put my finger on the inside while I remove the backing on the foam. I'll seal everything in place with the pre-cut acetate. I'll adhere this snow globe using some liquid adhesive. And since the background is all at the same level, I don't have to add any extra pieces of cardstock. Then once that's glued down, I'm going to use some of the sheer glue, put that around the outside frame, and then I can attach the die cut frame in place. And I cut this out using some black cardstock. Already stamped out the sentiment. This is "A thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices." I think this is my favorite image in the whole kit. And I felt like there's a lot of white space on the top portion of the card, so I'm going to add a couple of the stitched banners on the left-hand side. I have one cut out in that light gray and the other in a light teal. I'm just going to overlap them slightly. And then I'm also going to add a twine bow just right underneath the sentiment. And this is just some twine that I have on hand. So I'll tie my bow, trim off the tails, and then I'll attach it using a small glue dot. I didn't feel like the card needed a lot of extra bling, but I am going to use just a few pieces. I have some of the blue iridescent goosebumps and also some of the silver petite posies. Put one on both sides of the sentiment and then just a couple on the banners. So again, for that second card, I made them the same, except I made a non-shaker. I love this silhouette image of Mary, Joseph, and baby Jesus. I think I'll be using this on some of my other Christmas cards I'll be making this year. So moving on to the next set of cards, this is a sketch from Mojo Monday. It's number 547. For the background paper, I'm using a gray tone-on-tone pattern with a bunch of snowflakes, and I didn't want to use an entire sheet for that background since so much of it's going to be covered up. So I just cut two, I think they're 1 inch or maybe 1.25 inch strips. And then I have this fun candy and snowflake background for this wider piece that goes in the back of the card. And I did layer all of these using some black cardstock. I'll put my card front onto a card base. And for this card, I'm going to have that 1/8 of an inch of the card base showing. I'm using some of this red paper with that garland design. Before I adhere it in place, I will add the scrap cardstock to the upper and lower portion where it goes off of the other layers. I do like to add matted layers to most of the pattern paper, but I decided not to for that red piece since it already has quite a bit of contrast against the black and the gray. Instead of cutting that banner that's indicated on the sketch, I used one of Queen Company's foundation die sets for this stitch tab. And I did put that scrap piece of cardstock on the upper portion. And I just cut out 2 of those tabs so I would have the perfect size to put underneath it. Now for the circle element on the sketch, I'll be using just the inside portion of one of the snow globes. So this is the round snow globe. When you cut out the frame, this is the part that would come out. You wouldn't use this piece. So I thought it would be perfect to add to the card since I think the snow globe would have been a little too large for this design. And I did put some scrap cardstock on the 2 sides where it goes off of the red paper. And then I used some of the white shimmer paper and one of Queen Company's border dies to cut a little snowy hillside. And for this card, I'm going to have a few trees and also Santa and 3 of his reindeer. And I cut the trees out of some silver cardstock that I have on hand. I'll just glue those down. I could have made them green, but there isn't any green on the pattern paper, and I didn't want to add another color. I really like the black, red, gray, and white on this card. And then Santa and the reindeer are all in black since they're a silhouette against the sky. I'm just gluing all of these in place using some of my art glitter glue. I've already stamped out the sentiment and also matted it with some red paper. This is wishing you a season of joy. I'll just adhere that right underneath the little scene. And I decided to add a few snowflake die cuts. The dies are from Queen Company's special delivery kit. They have this perfect size snowflake and I love to use this. I'm going to pop these up using some thin foam squares. And then we'll finish off the card using some Queen Company bling. I have some gray pearls. Thought that color worked perfectly with the grays in the pattern paper. And then I also have some white petite posies. So there is my finished card. And for the second, I decided to make a non-shaker as well, since I think it would have just been too big for this design. Now moving on to the next set of cards, I won't be using a card sketch this time. I'm using this fun stripe paper for the background, and then I'm adding this tone-on-tone green scallop strip going across the middle of the card. Now this is from one of Queen Company's foundation dies, and it's not wide enough to go across a horizontal card. But since most of that's going to be covered up, it's not a problem. I just cut it in half and adhered one half to the right and the other to the left. And I also used one of Queen Company's stitched strip dies. I think this is from set number 8. And same thing, I just cut it down the middle, since you're not going to see that big gap in the center. I'll just layer this on one of the green solids. You can see that reddish pink on the other side of that green paper. Put my card front onto a card base. And then I'm going to add a stitched rectangle die cut. Use some more of the white shimmer paper. I'll put some scrap cardstock on the upper and lower portion of this rectangle before I adhere it onto the card, since it is going over those other layers. Then I'll adhere that in place using some liquid adhesive. I do tend to use liquid adhesive more often if I'm adhering a specialty cardstock, since this does have that pearlescent finish. So place that in the center of the card, and that's where I'll be able to add my image and sentiment. So for this card, I'm using the third shape of the snow globe. So it's a little wider and a little shorter. I've already attached the background. I used the gray tone-on-tone paper with the snowflakes. Just glue that right in the center of that white rectangle. And on this card, I'm assembling the red sleigh with a couple of presents. The kit includes a separate die for the glider part of the sleigh. I'm not sure if that's what it's called. So I did cut that out using some of the silver specialty cardstock. I just adhered the two pieces together and then glued the sleigh inside the snow globe. I'm just going to add the presents into the opening of the sleigh. I do like to leave about 1/4 of an inch gap from the bottom portion of the snow globe with the image. That way there's room to add some of the shaker toppings without it covering up the image too much. And I wanted to add a little extra detail, so I used one of Queen Company's scalloped border dies, cut out this strip with some red solids, and then adhered it to the card using Queen Company's 1/8 of an inch red line tape. For shaker toppings on this card, I'm using that holiday sprinkle set number 1. Has some fun colored pops, and then I'll also add some of those red glitter discs. Remove the backing on the foam, seal everything in place with the acetate, and then I'll put some glue on that frame. I can attach the die cut frame and also the sentiment. And the sentiment this time is, "We wish you a Merry Christmas." I love the fonts that Queen Company always has for their kits. And now to add a little embellishment to the card, I cut out some more of the snowflakes and then also a few more presents. I used some more glitter paper, and then the snowflakes are in that white shimmer paper. I'll pop up the snowflakes with the foam dimension, and then the presents I just glued directly down onto the card. And then I put one of the small red presents on the right side of that sentiment. For embellishments, this time I'm using some of the white petite posies. I put those in the center of the snowflakes. I have some green frosties and also some red jelly gems. I love the traditional Christmas colors with the red, green, and gray for this card. I guess gray isn't really a traditional color, but I think it all works really well together. So there are my two cards, and again, that second card I made as a non-shaker, but otherwise it's very similar to the shaker card. Now moving on to the next set of cards. I'm not going to use a card sketch again. This time I have some fun polka dot paper, and I love the addition of the teal with the Christmas colors. I think it really goes well together. So I'm going to adhere this piece onto some more of that silver mirror cardstock. I didn't get it down straight at first. Glad I was able to pull that up. And then I'll layer this piece onto some of the teal solids. Kind of wish I would have cut out the center of that teal cardstock just to have it for later, since I seem to go through quite a bit of the teal color. I'm going to add a strip of this gray snowflake paper across the center of the card. And then just for some extra detail, I used another Queen Company border die. So this is this fun wavy die. I used the darker teal and also the lighter teal solid. I thought it would be fun to have this rick-rack looking pattern going across the background. So I just adhered the light color first, and then I'll attach the darker teal right on top. So these stack together. And I'll just flip this over and trim off those extra pieces. Now I can start working on the image and the sentiment. I'm using the taller snow globe, already attached the snowflake paper to the background. And for this image, I'm using this fun little ballerina. So I have her dress and her ballet slippers cut out of some red glitter paper. I thought the red would really pop against that teal. I am making a little blonde ballerina, since that's what my daughter is. She's a little blonde girl, although she's not a ballerina. I'll just glue the little ballerina inside the snow globe, leaving just that little gap underneath so I'll have room for the shaker toppings. I'm going to use 3 different shaker toppings. I have the white snowflakes, I have some of these teal glitter discs, and also the white pearls. Not going to put too many in there since I don't want to cover up her really pretty ballet slippers. Remove the backing on the foam and then seal everything in place with that pre-cut acetate. If you've never tried one of Queen Company's shaker kits before, they are so easy to use. Everything is pre-cut. And you can also buy refills of the foam and acetate, or you can use the dies that are included in the kit. So you would use the frame die to cut out the foam. You would just need 2 different pieces of foam stacked together to make it thick enough. And then for the acetate, you would use the outline dies. Just have my acrylic block on top while that glue dries. And the sentiment on this card is visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. So that's perfect to go with the little ballerina. Now before I adhere this snow globe onto the card, I'll add that scrap piece of cardstock on the upper portion. I didn't put any on the lower portion because even if there was that dent, you're not going to see it at all with all the shaker toppings and that extra foam at the bottom. Now for just a little extra detail, I cut out a couple of stitched circle die cuts using those same 2 teal colors. And I'll just attach these on the right and left hand side of the card. I do have them going over the edge, and I'll just trim off the extra. I'll add some of the snowflake die cuts to the center of each of those circles. And for the snowflakes this time, I cut them out of some white glitter cardstock. I did pop them up using the thin foam squares. And then for embellishments, I'm using some more of the blue iridescent goosebumps. Matches really nicely with the teal color. I have some blue ice flowers and also some red jelly gems. I didn't want to add a lot of extra red to this card since I wanted that ballerina's dress to really pop. I think it worked out nicely to have the red ink for the sentiment and then her red dress. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2, and I did decide to make them both shakers since I really like the look of all the shaker toppings underneath her feet. So now moving on to the next set of cards, using another card sketch. This is Mojo Monday number 549. I'm using several different pattern papers for this card. I have the very busy pattern paper that's just going to be on the left-hand side of the card, and then I'll add this snowflake paper in the teal down the center. I have some of the gray solid on the right-hand side of the card. Since I wanted the border die to be noticeable, I cut it out using some stripe paper. And this is that same wavy border die that I used on the ballerina card. Now I probably could have saved some of that pattern paper, the one with all the images on the left, since all you see is about an inch, maybe an inch and a quarter of that, but I didn't, so that's too bad. Would have been nice to save a little bit of that paper. So for this card, I'm going to make a non-shaker. So I have the background piece. The frame is cut out of that silver mirror paper. Adding a little snowy hill using some white glitter cardstock. And then I'll add the tree in the center. I'll put just a small piece of cardstock in the center of that tree where it goes over the glitter paper, just so it doesn't have that noticeable dent. Then before I adhere the snow globe to the card, I decided it needs something extra to anchor that globe. So I cut out 2 stitched banners, one with the pattern paper in red and then one with the red solids. I'm just going to layer the 2 pieces together, and then I'll adhere those banners flush to the left-hand side of the card. And then the base of the snow globe will sit right on top of that solid red banner. Also makes that snow globe stand out just a little bit more. And I did decide to pop this image up, so I'm going to use some foam dimensional tape. Make sure to get good coverage so there isn't one side or area that sags. I'll remove the backing and then adhere it to my card. And I probably should have put my card front onto my card base first. Sometimes I wait if I'm not sure if I'm going to add twine to the top or lower portion of the card. But I decided I wasn't going to, so I'm going to put my card front onto that card base now, leaving the 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. I've already gone ahead and stamped out the sentiment. This is "May the magic of Christmas fill your home this year." I think I used that on the first card. This time I stamped it out using some green ink. And since I'm really enjoying the snowflake from the special delivery kit, cut out 3 more of them using some white glitter paper. I'll just pop those up using some thin foam squares. I like having the thin foam squares if you don't want to have a lot of extra dimension on your card. Although I am going to add bling on top, so this card still has a little extra thickness. For embellishments, I'm using some ice flowers. I'm going to add these to the tree. Look like ornaments or Christmas lights. And then I'm going to add the blue iridescent goosebumps to the center of the snowflakes. Even though there is adhesive on all of Queen Company's bling, since I'm adhering it to glitter paper, I did add some liquid adhesive just to make sure it's going to stay in place. Also going to add some of the silver or gray pearls, and then a few of the green jelly gems. And then after looking at the card sitting on my table, I decided the tree needed a star. So I just added 1 star on top. And I did make the second card, which is a shaker, although I didn't add the extra embellishments to the tree. Instead, I just have the toppings at the bottom portion of that shaker. So now moving on to the next set of cards, I'm going to make a slimline card this time. First, I'm going to create my nighttime sky. So I have some Bristol Smooth cardstock, and then I have 2 different Distress Oxide inks, one in the black soot, and then the other is a blueprint sketch color. I put down the blue color first, and now I'll put the black soot on top. And I'm using Pink & Main's mini ergonomic blender brush. So easy to use, and having the Bristol Smooth cardstock makes it super easy to get a nice blend. So I mostly just want that hint of the blue in the background. And now to make it more of a night sky, I'm going to add the stars. just using a white gel pen. I did speed this portion up quite a bit while I'm just dotting the background with little stars. So now for the rest of the card, I have my snowy hill, and I'm going to layer this on some more of that silver cardstock. I am going to use some liquid adhesive to attach these pieces just to make sure it's going to stay in place on that specialty cardstock. For the hillside, I use Queen Company's border die. Now the die is not long enough for a slimline size card, so I cut it first. I think it's about 6 inches, and then I took the die, put it back on top of the paper, taped it in place, and then ran it through my die cut machine again. That way I had one full piece with the snow. And then for the hills behind, I just cut out 2 more of them. And there is that little gap with the hillside, but that's going to be covered up, so you're not going to see that. Adhere this onto my card. I'll put my card front onto a card base, and then I can start adding images and sentiments. And this is a standard slimline size. It's 3.5 inches by 8.5 inches. All of my other cards are A2 size. So I have an assortment of the dies from the kit, since I can add a ton of little images to the larger slimline card. I did already assemble most of them just to save on time on this video because it's already almost 40 minutes long. So I have my little house, cut out several of the trees. I will add just those scrap pieces of cardstock behind the top portion of the trees. That way I don't have that noticeable dent where it goes off of that snowy hill. I popped up the house using some thin foam squares. And since I have the hill and the trees in that background, that distant hill, I can have the images toward the front much larger, and it gives the scene a little more dimensional look. Once the trees are in place, I can start working on the next image. So I have the snowman. I cut that out using some white glitter paper, use some of the red pattern paper for the scarf, and then just some black cardstock for the hat. I am adding those extra layers behind the snowman where it goes off of the little hillsides. As you can see, I'm covering up that one little awkward spot of the hillside in the background. I used a circle die to cut out the moon. That way there's a little more contrast with Santa and his reindeer. And I'll just glue them right on top. And then I'll also be adding the tree. I used some of the tone-on-tone green pattern paper. And I cut out 2 more of the trees, just adding those extra scraps behind. And it just helps to have another die cut image so it's exactly the same size. Now I'll glue that tree down next to the snowman. I'm going to have 3 little presents. Used one of the pattern papers of the polka dot paper, and then I used a couple of the solids for the other 2 presents. And I did pop up all of the presents with some thin foam squares. And for sentiment, I'm going to stamp it directly onto the card. So I don't want to mess up. I am going to use my Misti. And this is the regular size Misti since it's a slimline card and it won't fit in my mini Misti. The sentiment is, may you never be too grown up to search the skies on Christmas Eve. Isn't that a fun sentiment? So I didn't think the card really needed a lot of extra bling, but I did decide to add some of the yellow jelly gems to decorate the tree. And then I'm also going to add some of the clear rhinestones. And I'll put just a couple of them in the upper right-hand corner, and then 2 more of them in the lower left-hand corner near the presents. I think there's already enough going on with this fun wintry scene. So there is my finished card, and I did make 2. And I love having all of the dies that you can use by themselves, or you can add them inside those snow globes. Now moving on to my final set of cards. Originally that slimline card was going to be my last one, but I realized I hadn't used the larger present die that's included in the kit, so I wanted to make sure to use that one. I'm using a card sketch by Queen Company. Their sketches were designed to work with their foundation die sets, which makes it super easy to assemble a card. I'm using the snowflake teal paper for the background, and I'm layering this on some cardstock that I have in my craft room. It's this beautiful color that has a pearlescent finish on it. And then for that 3 square opening, I used some of the red solid. I love this teal and red together. It's so pretty. I added a piece of white cardstock behind it, so that way the window background is all white. And then for those thin, well, there's only one thin strip on the sketch, but I'm going to add 2. So I have a larger one using this polka dot paper. I'm just putting some liquid adhesive on the back and gluing it directly onto the card. And then I'll add a thin strip using the stripe paper. It's always fun to modify the card sketches. They're great for inspiration, but you can add your own spin on them. So I have 3 of the presents, cut them out using the 2 different color of teal papers, and then I also have the bow. I'll set those aside for a moment since I'm going to stamp the sentiment onto my card. I'm using the We Wish You a Merry Christmas again. I think the font is so pretty on that one. So now that I have this sentiment, I'll start adding those present images. And I did put some foam squares on the back of each of them just to pop them up. And for the bow, I used some teal glitter paper that Queen Company used to sell. I still have quite a bit of it left over. I'm also going to add a small banner in the upper right-hand corner using some of that same teal cardstock. And then for embellishments, I'm using some blue lollies. I have the clear iridescent goosebumps and also some red jelly gems. Overall, a very simple card design, but I love this little square grid since you can add sentiments or an assortment of images inside those boxes. So I did make 2 using the same design. Now here's just a quick recap of the 16 cards I made using Queen Company's brand new Winter Wonderland kit. As I mentioned earlier in the video, this kit is already sold out. It will be restocked early next year. I love Queen Company's products. I use them all the time. Their foundation dies are great. They have such a wide variety of different images and shapes in their foundation dies. I use them all the time. If you're a new crafter, they're a great set to pick up. They currently have the 10 different foundation die sets plus the new holiday foundation die set. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.